Welcome back to this special election edition of CBS 4 News. We want to dig a little deeper into what may be driving voters and who is turning out. And we're fortunate to be joined by Susan MacManus, a professor with the University of South Florida, who's been studying Florida elections for more than 30 years. She's coming to us live from Tampa. Susan, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, my pleasure. Greetings from the I-4 corridor.
All right, so let's talk about the youth vote. There's been a lot made with the Parkland shooting as to young people turning out to vote, at least registering increased. What are you seeing, and how decisive a factor could the youth vote be this time around?
It is definitely the case that they can tip the election towards one candidate or another, because the three youngest generations, that would be Gen Xers, the millennials, and the new hashtag generation, Gen Zers, now make up over 52% of Florida's registered voters. And they're not all registered as Democrats or Republicans. In fact, a pretty hefty proportion are registered as no party affiliation, and they tend to vote the candidate more than the party. So it's a fascinating opportunity for young voters to step up to the plate and show their clout. But it's also important to realize that they're not 100% Democrats. There's plenty of young Republicans and conservatives as well.
Well, one of the things I tend to find with younger voters is, while they don't, as you said, they don't like to identify by party, they tend to be more ethnically diverse, as we've discussed before, racially diverse, a little bit more progressive in their ideas. So while they may not be listed as Democrats, they probably tend to be more sympathetic for Democrats, which is why Democrats spend so much time and money trying to get to them.
Oh, without question, 58% of the no party affiliation are these younger voters. They're over half. And it's absolutely true that they're much more liberal in their policy preferences. They're much more likely to be energized by meeting a candidate in person and by being engaged with someone who motivates them to vote, talks their language, reaches them in the same way that they communicate, is inspiring. And as you mentioned, these three younger generations are much more racially and ethnically diverse.
Well, one thing
in fact, diversity is one of the values that they put on the table.
Susan, one thing I would note, I know that the Tampa Bay Times recently did an analysis where, as of Friday, while they represent 18 to 29-year-olds, represent 17% of registered voters, right now they're only representing 7% of the people who voted. So what I've been telling young people is that they will have an impact on their election, either by turning out and voting or by staying home. Either way, they'll have an impact. But I want to turn to the Senate race. So much has been made right now about the governor's race that in a lot of ways we've forgotten about the Senate race. Why is that?
Both of the candidates for the U.S. Senate, that would be Governor Scott and Senator Nelson, are well-known figures in Florida. They started their ads so early, everybody's aware of both of them, and more money has been spent on that campaign than anywhere else in the country. We have the most expensive one.
The voters in Florida.
Pardon me? Oh.
Susan, I think we're having a little trouble. Do you have me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me just jump ahead to my last question while with the little time we've got left. Obviously, race has become an issue in the governor's race. You know, I think sometimes too much is made, though, of the question of the historic nature of Andrew Gillum being the first governor, African-American governor. This state did elect Barack Obama twice to be president.
Right, and actually Gillum is running a campaign very much patterned after the way that President Obama won Florida, by reaching out to these younger and more diverse voters, groups that typically don't vote in midterms. That's why it's so interesting to see that the parties have realized they've got to go after this diverse vote. And it's also true that people really think of a governor as being closer to them, having more impact on their lives than the senator, which seems distant. And Susan, after all, the younger people really don't like politics in Washington. This is why Gillum is so appealing to many of them.
Susan, I could talk to you all day, but I'm under a time limit. So I thank you very much for your time. All right, CBS 4 News will be right back after this.